The morning sun cast a warm glow over the Miller household as Ruby awoke with a sense of anticipation, her hands gently caressing her swollen belly. The due date was approaching, but Ruby felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness about the impending arrival of her twins. She had meticulously prepared the nursery, folding tiny onesies and arranging stuffed animals with care. As the day unfolded, a sudden twinge of pain seized Ruby. The contractions started, catching her off guard. Edward, engrossed in his work emails, looked up in concern as Ruby winced in discomfort. "Edward, I think it's time," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, despite the growing pain. "Already?" Edward's eyes widened as he rushed to her side, his initial panic giving way to excitement. A hurried drive to the hospital followed, the couple navigating through traffic with anticipation and trepidation. In the labor room, Ruby's grip tightened on Edward's hand as the contractions intensified. Hours passed like a blur, and soon the doctor announced the arrival of not one but two babies. Ruby's exhaustion mingled with joy as she cradled the newborns in her arms. The room was filled with the soft cries of the twins, a sound that would become both comforting and challenging in the days to come. Back home, the reality of parenthood began to settle in. Ruby, still recovering from the birthing process, found herself immersed in a whirlwind of diapers, feedings, and sleepless nights. Edward, however, seemed oblivious to the demands of this new chapter in their lives. One evening, as Ruby struggled to comfort one crying baby, while the other seemed determined to make a mess with baby formula, Edward lounged on the couch, engrossed in a TV show. "Edward, I could use a little help here," Ruby said, her fatigue evident in her voice. He glanced over, offering a half-hearted smile. "Oh, they're just babies. They'll be fine." Ruby sighed, realizing that her expectations of shared responsibility were not aligning with Edward's reality. The unexpected arrivals had brought immeasurable joy, but they also unearthed the fault lines in their marriage, setting the stage for the challenges that lay ahead. As the days turned into weeks, the Miller household settled into a rhythm dictated by the demands of two newborns. Ruby, with dark circles under her eyes and a constant air of exhaustion, navigated the challenges of feeding, changing, and soothing the twins. Meanwhile, Edward's routine remained largely unchanged, his focus still on his work and personal pursuits. One evening, as Ruby prepared a bottle for one of the twins, Edward sauntered into the kitchen, scrolling through his phone. "Edward, can you help me warm this bottle? I'm juggling two hungry babies here," Ruby said, a hint of frustration in her voice. Edward looked up briefly. "Can't you see I'm in the middle of something important?" "Just handle it, Ruby." Ruby felt a pang of disappointment. She had hoped that the arrival of their children would bridge the gap between them, but it seemed that Edward's expectations remained firmly rooted in traditional gender roles. In the following days, Ruby couldn't shake the feeling that she was shouldering the burden of childcare alone. Edward's expectations mirrored those of his upbringing, where his mother took care of everything, leaving him free to pursue his own interests. One evening, after finally settling the twins into a brief nap, Ruby confronted Edward about the growing divide. "Edward, I thought we would be partners in this journey. Taking care of the twins is a shared responsibility," Ruby expressed, her eyes pleading for understanding. Edward, looking somewhat baffled, responded, "Ruby, you're better at this stuff. I have work and other things on my plate. Why complicate things?" Ruby's frustration bubbled to the surface. "Edward, being a homemaker is not just my job. It's about us, about our family. I need your help and support." Edward, seemingly unmoved, chuckled dismissively. "Ruby, you're overthinking this. It's how it's always been." Their conversation hung in the air, highlighting the stark contrast in their perspectives on marriage and parenthood. The burden of tradition weighed heavily on Ruby's shoulders, and as the days passed, the strain on their relationship became more palpable. The twins, oblivious to the tension surrounding them, continued to grow, their presence a constant reminder of the uncharted territory Ruby and Edward found themselves navigating. The tension in the Miller household reached a boiling point as Ruby, weary from sleepless nights and the relentless demands of twin care, found herself unable to bear the weight of unspoken expectations any longer. One evening, the twins finally settled into a brief moment of calm, and Ruby seized the opportunity to address the growing disconnect with Edward. She approached him in the living room, where he lounged comfortably on the sofa, engrossed in his laptop. "Edward, we need to talk." Ruby's voice trembled with a mix of frustration and vulnerability. Edward, only half glancing at her, mumbled, "Can it wait? I'm in the middle of something here." "No, it can't wait. We have 2 children now, and I can't do this alone. I need your help," Ruby insisted, her eyes pleading for understanding. Edward sighed, closing his laptop with irritation. "Ruby, I'm working hard to provide for this family. Can't you appreciate that?" Ruby felt a surge of frustration. "I appreciate your work, but being a parent is a shared responsibility. You can't just check out when it gets tough." Edward, seemingly unfazed, responded, "This is what you signed up for when you decided to stay at home. I can't be expected to do everything." The words hung in the air, a stark reminder of the deeply ingrained expectations that Edward carried. Ruby took a deep breath, summoning the courage to voice what had been brewing inside her for too long. "No, Edward, this isn't what I signed up for. I signed up for a partnership, for us to face the challenges together. I'm drowning in the responsibilities, and your indifference is making it harder." Edward raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback by Ruby's newfound assertiveness. "What do you want me to do? I can't be changing diapers and feeding them every time they cry. I have work, responsibilities." Ruby, her patience wearing thin, retorted, "And what about my responsibilities? Don't you see that raising our children is a shared responsibility? I need you to be present, to be a father to our kids." The confrontation escalated as Ruby poured out her frustrations, challenging Edward to see beyond the traditional roles he had accepted without question. The heated exchange laid bare the fractures in their marriage, leaving them both grappling with the realization that parenthood demanded more from each of them than they had initially understood. The twins, oblivious to the storm of emotions around them, continued to sleep peacefully, unknowingly becoming catalysts for change in their parents' relationship. Ruby's impassioned confrontation with Edward left the Miller household in a state of uneasy silence. Days passed, and the strain on their marriage only intensified. That was until a surprise phone call from Edward's mother, Evelyn, changed the dynamics of their struggling relationship. Evelyn, having sensed the discord in her son's voice during their conversation, took the next flight to be with them. Her arrival was met with a mix of anxiety and curiosity from Ruby, who wondered how much influence Edward's mother could wield in their lives. One evening, as the twins napped and the living room became a temporary haven of tranquility, Evelyn sat down with Ruby, her eyes a mix of concern and determination. "Ruby, my dear, Edward told me things are not going well." "What's been happening?" Evelyn's words were a gentle nudge, inviting Ruby to open up. Ruby hesitated but then poured her heart out, recounting the sleepless nights, the unshared responsibilities, and the growing frustration between her and Edward. Evelyn listened intently, her maternal instincts kicking in. "It sounds like you're overwhelmed, dear. Parenthood is a challenge, especially with twins, but it's a challenge meant to be faced together." Ruby nodded, appreciating the understanding in Evelyn's eyes. "I thought we would be a team, but Edward doesn't seem to grasp the magnitude of what we're going through." Evelyn sighed, a mix of disappointment and determination in her voice. Edward has his faults, my dear, and I'll be the first to admit it. But it's my responsibility as his mother to set him on the right path." The next morning, Evelyn confronted Edward, her stern expression leaving no room for evasion. "Edward, I've seen how you've been treating Ruby, and I won't stand for it. You can't expect her to bear the brunt of parenthood alone." Evelyn scolded, her maternal authority cutting through any excuses. Edward, somewhat taken aback by his mother's directness, stammered, "Mom, it's not that simple. I have my responsibilities at work, and Ruby is good at handling things." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "Don't use work as an excuse. Ruby is your wife, and those children are your responsibility too. You need to step up and be a father." The stern lecture continued, and it became clear that Evelyn was not only advocating for Ruby, but also demanding that her son reconsider his stance on shared responsibilities. Ruby, observing the exchange, felt a mix of relief and apprehension. She had never seen Edward challenged in this way, and a part of her hoped that his mother's intervention would be the catalyst for positive change. As the days unfolded, Evelyn took charge, guiding Edward through the intricacies of childcare and household chores. The once uninvolved husband found himself thrust into unfamiliar territory, facing the reality of Ruby's daily struggles. The chapter ended with a realization dawning on Edward, an understanding that parenthood was not a burden to be borne solely by Ruby, but a journey to be shared as a family. The presence of Edward's mother, with her unwavering support for Ruby, set the stage for the transformative events that would unfold in the subsequent chapters. Under the watchful eye and guidance of Evelyn, the Miller household underwent a transformative phase. Edward, accustomed to the comfort of traditional gender roles, found himself thrust into the world of childcare and domestic responsibilities. It was a journey marked by challenges, realizations, and the forging of new connections within the family. One morning, as the sun streamed through the curtains, Edward approached Ruby, who was busy preparing bottles for the twins. "Ruby, how do you manage this every day?" "It's exhausting," Edward confessed, a hint of humility in his voice. Ruby, torn between empathy and frustration, responded, "Welcome to my world, Edward. It's not easy, but it's what being a parent is all about." Evelyn, overhearing the conversation, intervened with a firm yet reassuring tone. "Edward, parenting is a shared responsibility. Ruby has been doing this alone for too long. It's time for you to step up." Under Evelyn's guidance, Edward learned the intricacies of diaper changing, bottle feeding, and soothing fussy babies. The once confident businessman stumbled through the daily routines of childcare, facing the unpredictable nature of infant demands. One evening, as the twins simultaneously erupted into cries, Edward's frustration reached a breaking point. "They won't stop crying, Ruby. What do I do?" Ruby, who had been observing from a distance, approached with a smile. "You have to find your rhythm, Edward. Maybe try singing to them or rocking them gently." Edward hesitated, but then began a shaky rendition of a lullaby. To everyone's surprise, the twins gradually quieted down, their cries replaced by the calming melody of their father's voice. Ruby, her eyes reflecting a mix of pride and relief, said, "See, Edward, you're getting the hang of it. Parenthood is a learning process for both of us." The days turned into a crash course in parenthood, with Evelyn offering guidance and support at every turn. Edward, initially resistant, started to appreciate the intricacies of Ruby's role and the shared responsibilities that came with raising a family. One afternoon, as they gathered in the living room, Edward confessed, "I never realized how much work goes into taking care of the twins. I appreciate everything you do, Ruby." Ruby, her exhaustion momentarily lifted by Edward's acknowledgement, smiled and replied, "It's a team effort, Edward. We're in this together." Evelyn, observing the exchange, nodded approvingly. Remember, being a family means facing challenges together. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. As the chapter unfolded, the Miller household experienced a shift in dynamics. Edward, once resistant to change, began to embrace his role as a father and partner. The lessons in parenthood became a bridge connecting Ruby and Edward in a way that transcended traditional gender roles, setting the stage for a renewed sense of unity in their journey as parents. With each passing day, the Miller household underwent a transformation. Edward, under the guidance of his mother, Evelyn, and with Ruby's unwavering support, embraced the challenges of parenthood. The once fractured relationship between Ruby and Edward began to show signs of healing, marked by moments of gratitude and subtle shifts in their dynamics. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Edward took a moment to express his newfound appreciation. "Ruby, I want to thank you for everything you've done for our family. I never realized the extent of your efforts until now." Ruby, touched by Edward's acknowledgement, replied, "It means a lot to hear that, Edward. But we're a team, and I'm glad we're facing this journey together." Evelyn, observing the exchange, chimed in, "Gratitude is the foundation of a strong family." Edward, "It takes strength to recognize and appreciate the efforts of those around you." As the days unfolded, Edward actively participated in household chores and childcare, taking on responsibilities he once deemed outside his purview. The twins, sensing the newfound unity in their parents, responded with smiles and coos, creating a more harmonious atmosphere in the household. One weekend, as they enjoyed a rare moment of quiet with the twins napping, Edward turned to Ruby with a reflective look. "I never realized how challenging it is to manage the household and take care of the twins. I appreciate everything you do, and I'm sorry it took me this long to see it." Ruby, sensing the sincerity in Edward's words, smiled. "We're learning and growing together, Edward. That's what matters." Evelyn, always the guiding force, added, "Change doesn't happen overnight, but what's important is the effort you put into it. Both of you are doing wonderfully." The sense of gratitude and change extended beyond their daily routines. Edward started actively engaging with the twins, creating moments of joy and laughter that echoed through the house. Ruby, in turn, felt a renewed sense of partnership, realizing that Edward's transformation was not just for her, but for the entire family. One evening, as they sat on the couch, watching the twins play, Edward said, "I used to underestimate the importance of what you do, Ruby. Now I see it as the backbone of our family." Ruby, her heart swelling with a mix of emotions, replied, "It's a journey, Edward. I'm just glad we're on it together." As Chapter 6 unfolded, the Miller household became a testament to the power of gratitude and change. The lessons learned in parenthood rippled through their relationship, creating a foundation for a stronger, more equal partnership. The twins, blissfully unaware of the journey that had unfolded around them, became the catalysts for transformation and unity in the Miller family. The Miller household, once marred by discord and unmet expectations, found itself at a turning point. Chapter 7 unfolded as a chapter of renewal and a promise of a fresh start for Ruby, Edward, and their twins. The echoes of gratitude and change reverberated, paving the way for a more harmonious and united family. One weekend morning, as sunlight streamed through the curtains, Edward initiated a conversation with Ruby. "Ruby, I've been thinking. I want to be more involved, not just with the twins, but in every aspect of our family life." Ruby, pleasantly surprised by Edward's proactive approach, smiled. "I appreciate that, Edward. It makes a huge difference." Evelyn, having witnessed the exchange, added her wisdom to the conversation. "A fresh start requires effort from both of you. It's about communication, understanding, and a shared commitment to each other and your family." With Evelyn's guidance, the couple engaged in open dialogues, addressing lingering concerns and outlining their expectations for the future. It became a pivotal moment of transparency, where they both acknowledged the mistakes of the past and expressed their hopes for a more balanced partnership. One evening, as they enjoyed a family dinner, Edward shared his thoughts. "I've come to realize that being a family isn't just about providing financially. It's about being present, sharing responsibilities, and creating a supportive environment." Ruby, touched by Edward's sincerity, replied, "I'm glad you see that, Edward. It means a lot to me and the twins." Evelyn, ever the guiding force, interjected, "Remember, every day is an opportunity for a fresh start. Learn from the past, but focus on building a future together." As the days turned into weeks, Edward continued to actively contribute to household chores and childcare, fostering a newfound connection with Ruby and the twins. The once distant father became a hands-on parent, creating cherished moments that strengthened the bonds within the family. One weekend, as they took the twins for a stroll in the park, Edward turned to Ruby with a genuine smile. "I never thought I'd enjoy these simple moments so much. Thank you for giving me the chance to be a better husband and father." Ruby, her heart filled with gratitude, responded, "It's never too late for a fresh start, Edward. I'm just happy we're on this journey together." As Chapter 7 unfolded, the Miller household embraced the promise of a fresh start. The lessons learned, the gratitude expressed, and the commitment to change transformed their family dynamics. The twins, now surrounded by the warmth of a united front, thrived in an environment of love and support, marking the beginning of a new and promising chapter in the Miller family's story.